My name is Helen Wu. I'm the associate publisher of Yeehoo Press, an independent children's book publisher based in Los Angeles, California. We publish the English editions of children's picture books in the US and the simplified Chinese edition in mainland China at the same time. So today, I want to share with you some tips I have for writing for an international audience. Tip number 1, focusing on the universal feelings. For example, recently I wrote a story about a Chinese dragon goes to a Western dragon school. It was based on my own immigrant experience from China to US. So I started the story as this dragon and his family moves from the eastern lakeside to a western dragon valley. This kind of story fits the US market pretty well, but if I want the book to get into other countries and cultures, I will need to know that there are a lot of other countries that are not immigrant countries. And for example, China, Japan, New Zealand. So if I want the book to be received better in those countries and cultures, I could do some small tweaks to make it to touch the universal feelings instead of this specific experience. For example, I changed the beginning to this dragon is new to town. So, and I removed the immigrant experience and inspiration to the author's notes. So for readers who had this immigrant experience, they could identify with that feelings immediately. But for those who doesn't have those feelings, they still can identify this, moving experience and new to town things. Nowadays, people move around quite often, and even within that country, people move from one place to another place, and they will have this feeling of go to a new environment and need to adjust to this new environment. So just a small tweaks, this story could reach a much wider audience. Tip number 2, try to have multiple hooks for your books. Recently, I've been asked, do you think diversity stories would sell internationally? Or do you think books about one culture would sell in another country or in another culture? I will say it truly depends on the manuscript, on the story. For example, I have several books that I'm working on, and they all have something to do with Chinese culture, and they were all based on my immigrant experience. But when I compare all these different manuscripts, I would find they have very different marketability. For example, one story was about, that's a story that I wrote like 5 years ago, and it's the first story I ever tried for traditional publishing. So I can understand where how I improved during this journey. But yeah, anyway, well, that story about a Chinese American girl visits her extended family in China and feels the deep love from her grandparents. Well, that's a very sweet and straightforward story. And when you look at the hooks of the story, there are probably only 2 hooks, like visiting a family overseas and Chinese culture. That's actually to a very narrowed audience. Another books are about Chinese dragon goes to a Western dragon school. Chinese dragon is a water dragon, so they only breathe water. And Western dragons are fire dragons. They breathe out fire. So this water dragon finds out all others breathe fire, and he needs to learn, since the first lesson of the school is to teach them how to do some fire tricks. And so in this Western dragon school, he needs to learn how to breathe fire. So for this story, there were several hooks, like dragon, like the twist between Eastern and Western culture, and water and fire, since he needs to breathe fire, and there were some STEM elements there. And there were self-identification, since, as a water dragon, that's the only water dragon, and you need to learn fire in a fire dragon school. There are some, questions when it comes to this situation, and you will doubt who you are, how to identify yourself, some deep topics like that. And it's also have elements of first day of school. I said the beginning of the story is the first day of dragon school. So just name a few of the hooks you already find 5 hooks, and the marketability of this book is much stronger than the first one. Tip number 3, after your book is published, try to develop some marketing materials around your book, no matter designed by your publisher or author herself. When I say marketing materials, it's such as some activities. And try to understand your story. What's the best activities you could develop around the story? Some stories have some handcraft, like the art style have a lot of hand draw cutouts or use some mixed media. It might be a great opportunity to invite kids in the school to use materials available to create their own unique art based on the book. Some books have a lot of characters and have some fun conversations, and it might be a great idea to develop a performance or little show and ask the students to act those character out, and it will be fun to have to see this how this story is performed on stage. And some other books might be great to have some other, to introduce some culture to the audience, and you could develop some fact sheet about a specific culture or specific elements you are teaching about. And so each book is different, and try to understand the book and develop some marketing materials and activities around your book. So you are not just writing a book, you are building a community. You provide resources for teachers, librarians, parents, and kids. And in the end of the day, they might not remember the specific plot of your book, but they will remember the feeling when they read your book and share your book. And that's all we want in the author. Tip number 4, try to pitch to foreign agencies and publishers. When it comes to the research of foreign agencies and publishers, it will be very difficult and overwhelming since, well, how much time and effort we spend to try to do research on domestic agencies and publishers. But when it comes to foreign agencies and publishers, I feel there is a little tip I will make the research more effective. Let's go to those book fairs website, those international book fairs such as Bologna Book Fair, London Book Fair, Tokyo Book Fair, Shanghai International Children's Book Fair, and of course there were a few more international book fairs. And usually on these book fairs websites, and they will have some news or buzzwords, or even have a list of their attendees of agencies and publishers. So it will be very effective if you could look at those websites and find the information of those foreign agencies and publishers. Because if they could attend those book fairs and be listed on their website, or even end up in their as their featured guests or featured speakers, or in their newsletter or buzzword, that means they are pretty committed to this business, and they have resources, and they could afford this costly traveling and resources just to simply be there. So that will make your research much effective and help you understand what's out there internationally. Thank you so much for watching. I hope to see you next time. Bye.